Hey everybody, before we start I just want to tell you that I'm so excited to be sharing the stage with these two gentlemen who are a big inspiration to my work. So I am a designer, as Paul already said. I'm a designer. I'm trained to be a product designer. But you can wonder if you're a designer in the age of today, if you still want to make any products. You know, we have a lot of products. We have a lot of chairs, we have a lot of tables. I really enjoy doing things with food. I really like that food is ephemeral. I really like that as a designer you can have a material that you can absorb in your body, that if I make something, it goes through your body. Eventually you can say that I'm a shit designer, because all that I design will become shit. And I think that's fantastic. I really like that whatever I make eventually nourishes the earth, and that you can grow new life on top of that again. So we're talking about food and eating design and memories today. And I'm not sure if all of my work is related to memories, but when you look at my work, or when I look at my work, I see that it's not really about food. You know, I use food a bit as an excuse. I use it as an excuse to get people interacting, to look at how people behave socially. I use food to create something that makes people do something with it. I really like all my designs to be experiential, things that you can touch, things that you can interact with. So what you see here is an installation called Teardrop, and it's actually just a childhood fantasy, because as a child I was always dreaming of these places where strings would fall from the ceiling that I could walk through, and then they touch you everywhere. And I had this kind of car wash fantasies, that if you go into a car wash, then you have all these things going there. And as a child, I would go with my dad in the car, and then I would fantasize that I would have my bathing suit on and have like a little car wash for kids that is kid size and soft. Well, based on that, this installation is there to experience physically. But in the middle of this stringy situation, there is a circle with pipettes, like glass pipettes, 24 of them. And the situation is that one person has to stand underneath with his or her mouth open, and just the single act of having to stand somewhere underneath with your mouth open, most people find it a bit scary. And I think that's interesting. I like to observe, why is it actually scary to stand somewhere with your mouth open? You know, it's not really a big thing, but already that brings a bit of tension in the experience of this design. And then I made sure that in these glass pipettes, there are 24 different flavors dissolved in water. So you have 24 drops of flavors, but you don't know what it is. These pipettes, they are connected to the strings, and in every few other strings, there is a little tag on the string. And when you see the tag, you know that you can pull it to eventually release one drop of flavor in your mouth. But you cannot pull it yourself. You need someone else to pull it for you, because it's too far away of you. So this is an installation that needs two people. One person is the puller, and the other person is the receiver of the drops. And I think this installation is very interesting to experience yourself, but it's just as interesting to observe. Like when you have a couple, who of them pulls the strings? Who of them stands there with his mouth open? And it's very interesting to observe how people are kind of scared of having one drop of flavor in their mouth that's obviously not going to be poison, but they don't know what it is. So it's all about letting go and experiencing and handing over the power to someone else. So yes, it is about food and flavor, but I just use that food and flavor to play with psychological effects. And it's just a lot of fun as well. So I've been doing a lot of projects. Sometimes it's more installation-based, sometimes it's more dinners, sometimes I work for hospitals, food industries, or with farmers. And sometimes I do very small little projects that really don't get a lot of attention, but sometimes they grow very dear to me, and this is one of them. I did a project for the Historical Museum in Rotterdam, and they had an exhibition about the Second World War. And maybe you know that in Rotterdam, at the end of the World War II, Rotterdam has been severely bombed, and it ruined the whole city, and there was a big food shortage, and a lot of people died of starvation. It was a really, really black time. And they had an exhibition about this, and they asked me to do also something with it with food. So I went to the Resistance Museum, and I got some beautiful handwritten recipes from that time, like Hendrik the Hunger Doder, which is Hendrik the Hunger Killer. That was the name of the recipe, which was made of grated beetroot. And also I prepared some tulip bulbs, specialties from that time. People still have memories of that. And I did that only because I wanted our contemporary people to taste this and to understand what the flavors were of this time. But back then I didn't really realize that a lot of people that were there were actually children during the time of war. And when they took this food and when they took it into their mouth, they didn't taste this food for over 65 years. So suddenly it got into their bodies, but it also opened up secret passages in their brain, and they evoked a lot of memories. Memories of them being children, memories sitting at the dining table with their mothers and fathers still alive, with their siblings. They saw their kitchen in front of them, all because of these flavors. And of course, we all know this effect. It's called the Proust effect. We are all aware that this happens. But for me as a designer, to understand that you can choose any material to work with, that there's just one material that you can actually evoke emotions with, for me, that is a very powerful driver for my work. So when you got in, you got a coupon, like the coupons in the war. With the coupon, you got a cup of surrogate coffee, and with the surrogate coffee, you would get your ration of food, which was then the war recipes. This is another installation. I thought let's show you some installations today, because I think installations are a really nice way to have people interact with your work in a very physical way. I was inspired by the Futurist movement. The Futurist art movement was a movement in the 30s of the last century, and they were a kind of aggressive art movement. They liked aggression. They were inspired by the industrialization. They liked aerodynamics. They liked machines. They were interested in Gesamtkunst, so everything would go together, and they would make these complete crazy artworks where sound and food and smell and poetry was all together, and this was very immersive. And so based on this, I did some research about the founder of this movement, which was called Marinetti. It was an Italian guy, and he actually wrote a cookbook. It was the Futurist cookbook, the Futurist Manifesto cookbook. And in this cookbook, he made the statement that pasta needed to be forbidden. And he was Italian. But pasta needed to be forbidden because eating a lot of pasta would make you fat. It would make you slow. It would make you lethargic. It would give you all the aspects that they were fighting against, because people would need to eat meat and be aggressive and physically strong. And of course, this made quite a stir in Italy at that time. And I think it's interesting that he saw that even though the dietary research was not being done to carbohydrates yet. And thinking about that, I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to make a futurist work, because the futurists were already there, but I want to be inspired by them. And I was fascinated by his idea that pasta was something that we shouldn't do, or we shouldn't eat, because it would make you slow. And I think, well, slowness is also a very nice thing sometimes. And isn't it nice to go to a sauna and become slow? Because if you go to a sauna, then actually you get all the things that he's fighting against. You become slow, and, well, you might not become fat maybe, but you do not really get the aggressive state that he wants you to be in. So I made a pasta sauna, and well, maybe it's better to see it here. It's a little house with cooking pots of water, so they boil and they make a lot of steam. And then when you enter the space, you get a little ball of dough, and you have to have a pasta partner, otherwise you cannot join the pasta party. And so together with someone else, you go into this space where there will be someone on a ladder with a little pasta machine, and the pasta machine is connected to a music machine. And because it's the same movement of turning the wheel to make the pasta and also to make the music go. So here you can see that, or here, you can see that the yellow sheet is very resembling very strongly the sheet of pasta that comes out of the machine. So you have music, you have steam, you inhale the steam, you inhale the sense of pasta, and then the pasta gets cooked for you, and then eventually you go out of the space, and then you season your pasta with fresh herbs and salt and pepper and oil and Parmesan cheese, and then you eat it together. So this is my daughter. Her name is Juni. She's already 12 years old now, but here she was about 3 years old. And she was super cute. She was really a little doll. And of course, I love her to death. But she didn't want to eat her vegetables. And I just couldn't have that. That's just really bad marketing for me. Like, as an eating designer, having a child that doesn't eat vegetables. I needed to fix that. And I read in a research paper that children have to taste something at least 7 times to accept a new flavor. It's like learning a new language. You just have to repeat and repeat and repeat. It's not only children, also adults can accept their new flavors in that way. And that was one thing. And also I noticed that when I put my child at the dining table back then, she would know, like, you know, I'm a toddler. I don't have that much to say in my life, but when I'm at the dining table, I can decide not to open my mouth. And if I do that, then I'm in charge of the situation. I kind of respect that attitude, but I don't like it when it is about eating your vegetables. So I needed to get her out of that situation of the dining table. So in my studio, I invited her with her friends of her daycare, and I had a full table of vegetables. And I told them, today, we're not eating, we're going to do a workshop of jewelry making, or bling-bling making for the boys. And what we're going to do, you have all these vegetables, and we're going to make jewelry of them. And the tool that you're going to use to make this jewelry is your teeth. So you actually nibble all the shapes into this jewelry. You're not eating, it's just, you know, making these shapes. So these children started playing, and of course I had some cookie cutters and a little drill to make holes. And they started playing, and they started tasting and tasting and tasting. And honestly, there was a little boy who made a bracelet, and he was chewing, but I think he was just, his mind was wandering off, and eventually he ate the whole damn bracelet. So I am proud to say that Juni is now 12 and eats all her vegetables. So I would say mission complete. And it's very cute. Okay, the last project I want to show you is a project I did in Hungary. It's a project I did with Gypsy Women. I'm not going to explain too much up front. I just want to tell you that you need to keep in the back of your mind the idea that in Hungary, gypsies are really seriously being rejected by society. So that's something you need to know when watching this film. This is a performance around a group of Roma Gypsy women. I think if you want to think about understanding between different social groups, I think food is a very, very strong tool that you can use to create a bond between people. To create understanding for Gypsy people, I think to use food is one thing, but then to be fed by someone is another thing. And I think That's why also it's only women, because it's mothers that feed their children. It's this kind of essence of life. I think the idea of feeding is a very intimate. A mother feeds her child with food, but also with love at the same time. I thought about making this installation where people are getting physically fed with food, but also with stories.
Az almával az a kedves emlékem, hogy összegyűltünk így gyerekek. És engem a nagy gyerekek nagyon-nagyon szerettek valamiért, mert azért én betyárka voltam, és vittek magukkal, és kerestek egy nagy házat, ahol nagyon sok a almafa. És beloktunk, és hát leszettük az almát, és majd jött a parasztember, és így nagyon kellett rohanni, nagyon-nagyon futottunk, szóval életem első olyan futás és utolsó, és amikor futottam, és utánunk kiabált, hogy te büdös cigány, és kiderült, hogy csak én voltam cigány.
The installation is made in a way that you can't see each other. You're sitting under the table, you have this little tent. Inside there are pictures and text and a flashlight, and it's a kind of strange environment. And then you sit there and the lady tells you her memories and the memories of the food that she has, and she will include you in her life in that way.
Karácsony volt, és bejött egy ilyen, nem tudom, ilyen tenyeres talpas nőre emlékszem valójában. És volt egy lány, akivel folyamatosan együtt mentünk házról házra, mi az intézetről intézetre, vagy nem tudom, hogy mondjam neked. Ő szőke volt. És akkor bejött, azt kérem, meg azt kérem. És akkor így valamiért kellett mennünk vele, kimentünk ő hozzá, és egész nap takarítani kellett, vagy jöttek a vendégek, és betettek minket egy ilyen hideg szobába, de nagyon éhesek voltunk. Vissza is vittek minket este, és annyira gyönyörű volt, annyira szép, csodálatos szép, mert csak mindenkinek lehet ilyen karácsonya, hogy így kinyílt a díszterem ajtaja, és megláttam a magas fát, csodálatosan feldíszítve, és a sok-sok gyerek ott eszik, és kiabál, és beszélget, és jól érzi magát. És a slusszpoén az, hogy csak akkor ehettem narancsot. Karácsonykor ehettem csak narancsot, és kaptunk mindenféle tárgyakat, ilyen hülyeségeket, és én elcseréltem narancsra. Elkezdtem így, hogy neked adom ezt, te add nekem a narancsot, és rengeteg narancs volt.
If you have had that experience and someone shared her food with you and her story with you, you cannot hate that person. You have to like that person. It's Immanuel Kant that said that if you break bread with each other, you can't break each other's neck.
Adok egy olyan dalt, amire gyerekkoromban mindig elaltatott egy nevelőnél. Jó? Csukd a szemed. Légy szíves! Szél viszi messzi a fellegeket, s mögötte lángol az ég. Nyújtsd ide, édes, a kis kezedet, ki tudja, látlak-e még? Ki tudja, ölele a két karom, ki tudja, csokol-e a szád galambom, ki tudja, mely nap és mely hajnalán indul az után tovább. Örültem, hogy itt voltál. Azt szeretném, ha nyugodtan itt ülni, majd jön egy kísérő, aki elkísér.
Nagyon jó volt, mert hát tényleg olyan volt, mint egy kuckot, tehát így azonnal egy ilyen nagyon személyes térbe kerültem, ami teljesen azonnal magával ragadott ezekkel a fényképekkel, meg pont szembe velem egy szoptatós kép volt, meg nagyon jó mondatok voltak, meg látszott, hogy gyerekrajz, szóval azonnal egy életet éreztem. Olyan volt valóban, mint hogyha a saját anyukám lenne, vagy én, mint mikor anyuka voltam, vagy most is az vagyok, mikor odalépett hozzám az Ágnes, gondolom ő volt az, ilyen nagyon kedves volt, és etetett, és nagyon szép volt.
that much time to explain about this project anymore. The only thing that I want to add to it is that people couldn't see each other. That was very important, because if you can make eye contact, then the feeding becomes very overwhelming to the person who's being fed. And also I wanted to create this anonymous blah, 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 that you think you don't know who she is. And then when you go out in the streets later on, you see a gypsy woman, you think, oh, maybe that's her, maybe this man is her brother. So I wanted to create this kind of generalization about it. And also, when people left, they got this balloon. You could see that in the film. And the balloon had the scent of the food that was being fed to you. So if you would, and that was intertwined with the story that the lady was talking about. So if you would go home and smell your balloon, then I was hoping that you would have a kind of a smell memory of the event and the situation, so that this would be something that would linger in your head longer. So that was my story.